of zo. Het is gewoon...
Het is frozen, dus ik denk dat we aan het opnemen zijn. Heb jij iets gedaan of zit je geblokkeerd? Ah nee, we zijn aan het opnemen.
Nee, ik doe niks. Ik zat gewoon stil te wachten.
Yes, we are recording. We are recording 20 seconds already.
Oh.
Okay, hey, welcome back, everybody watching, Pede, myself. We took a leap of absence because we had a shit ton to do in our private lives. Pede, you are sanding or sandblasting doors, I heard.
Yeah.
And I was selling records, so yeah. You still remodeling, or what's going on?
Yeah, we're renovating house, and next weekend they will start to build a new roof.
Okay, completely new.
Completely new, which means that in the end of summer we can finally leave my studio where we are sleeping now, so I can start silk screen and edge again.
Oh, it's going to be at your place.
Yeah.
Studio.
So we're now sleeping there.
When I was still active in screen printing, I got itchy when I fell off, or when I didn't do it a long time or a long period.
Yeah, I totally understand. I'm very lucky to have my teacher or the guy who taught me has a studio in Ghent. So when I want to do something, I can go there. So it's still possible to do something, but it's totally different than have the whole stuff ready at your home and just start when you have an idea or something's coming up to just do it. Now it's a bit more difficult, but the future looks bright.
Just that.
Sound.
Yeah, that sounds good, man. It's always great to studio at your place. I have a studio here, but I don't have time to work in it, so that's equally as bad, I guess. Yeah, I was doing my record sale, which took me a whole lot more weeks than I was planning to spend on it. But yeah, it went great. And just to round up, the leftovers are all online at my desktop page. So people who want to check that out and support this and the white vinyl thing, just pick some records up if you want. Today we are talking about duos and within black metal. So a duo that made a record that is a band. We both chose two to start off with. We had a list going on that was longer than two, but just to keep it concise a bit, we both selected two. Pede, you had Satyricon.
Yeah.
And
Fleurety.
Both from Norway, I guess.
Both from Norway, yeah.
I have Bone Awl, and then the Deogen, both from the US and both newer acts. It seems we have that rhythm going on where you take from the older stuff.
Old vs new. Old vs new.
Old versus new, yeah.
Yeah.
That way you learn, because I have huge gaps in my knowledge from that period, which I'm just now filling. Especially with the Fleurety, I tried it 2 times, and the first time I listened, I already sent you that I'm not going to be a fan. But I always make that mistake. I did it with Sai from Japan, when you listened to them and we did a podcast. The first time I heard that, it was nope.
I totally understand, but they have so many albums, and I can understand if you start with. Personally, I think the later albums, then I can imagine it's not your cup of tea. But if you would have started with Scorn Defeat or something,
I think
completely different.
I think we did the first and the second. Scorn Defeat was definitely in there.
Yeah.
But it always takes me a bit back when the sort of avant-garde stuff then, especially with the Fleurety also. And I don't think that is too avant-garde. Maybe for its time it is, but listening back now, it's totally different than Volksheim Guard or, for example, Psy. But
Yeah.
it has those overtones of being avant-garde, if you will. But it's just because it breaks through the mold of what black metal is, a bit more than, for example, Satyricon.
Yeah. But I understand that there was this time in the late 90s that the avant-garde tag was just used randomly for something that was a bit, a bit different, or for music that used some alien elements. And that's why I totally don't agree in a broader musical sense that I think 99% of those bands are avant-garde at all. Okay. Arturus was also avant-garde, which I think it's nonsense. It's not avant-garde. It's just a bit more theatrical, prog version of black metal. So, but to close this, I get your point. But I wonder, what album did you start with, Fleurety?
The blue one. I'm not sure what the title is, but
It's all common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just went for the re-release by Peaceful. I knew that cover and I just jumped on it. That's the most, I think the most known album, or the most known album cover.
I think so. Yeah.
It reminded me in some places, and I've listened to it 2 or 3 times. Reminded me a bit of Devil's Blood in some places, but that's maybe just because of the vocal patterns that run through the female vocal pattern.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Selim was a fan of that band, for example. And I'm not saying it's a one-on-one copy, but maybe my ear that connects with it. But
I would never relate Fleurety to the Devil's Blood. I won't say, say it's a bad comparison, but it's not something I would come up myself. So that's maybe interesting. Why? Because especially the female vocals were said to be influenced by jazz music. Okay. While the Devil's Blood is for me more 80s hard rock or 80s doom or whatever, some prog and stuff. So maybe it's a direction already that's overlapping. I don't know.
If you take Devil's Blood and you extend it into the future, you have Selim and His Enemies, and I'm not saying it's jazz, but we get into crowd territory and we get into territory. So I think the initial click was the vocal patterns that she had that kind of reminded me in some places. I mean, Farida is even more theatrical and more bombastic in her vocal presence. I think it's toned down on Fleurety, but that was the first thing I grabbed onto to give me something to have. Because
I think you should check their early demo and 7-inch material, because that's more close to what you're listening to now. It's far more extreme, especially the vocals. I don't even think there are female vocals on that early material. It's much more primitive and raw, but still quite weird, especially from the time they were recording. And so that debut album, it's a big progression. Also for the time, it was released in '94, if I'm right. So it's quite early in the history of black metal to have something like this. But there were more bands like In the Woods or even Vedbu and Zende were, I think, around, and they're from the same clique. And the interesting thing is that they always went further and further, but also returned to their early things and mixed it up. They released a couple, I think 4 7-inches, and some of the songs are even re-recordings of the demo songs, but some are the most extreme they ever did. while other EPs are almost rock or jazz, and you would think, oh no, now they left metal or extreme metal, but then they went back again. So that makes them very interesting, I think. But some recordings are really, they didn't stand the test of time.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that happens when you're young and experimenting.
Yeah, I think that's what people forget, how young all these bands are, or how young these people are that are involved in that scene.
Yeah.
Especially when you look back at documents like When the Light Takes Us, they are teenagers when they write. When Fenris was with the Was Bundes Enden, it was or with Dultheimgard, and he was like, yeah, he was like 17 or maybe younger even. So it's really crazy. But yeah, that's maybe the right music. But do you know a lot of 17-year-olds that write music like that now? So,
no, not that many, especially not that many that started such a movement.
Yeah, such movement. But apart from the movement, what stands out for me, and then with the movement, I mean the church burnings and whatever came. I think what stands for me in the long run, when the hype dies down a bit in my head, is the music that survives actually, and then the wealth of music, not just the dark tones, the mayhems, like we said, the Fleurety, the time guards, and even Over now, which I always shunned a bit in my head. I don't know why. They rocketed up my list as one of the top bands. Period. Not just in black metal, but even the stuff they're doing right now. It's a little bit Depeche Mode worship, but done to a point that is impeccable, I guess. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that came out in that scene. The Fleurety, the record I listened to was one of their first full length, then maybe, or
it's the first one. Yeah, it's this one.
Yeah,
I'm going to take it.
Yes,
that's the re-release on a Peaceful.
Yeah.
It was one of the albums that when it was released, I used to have it on CD first, together with, for example, In the Woods, that opened my view in all the extreme stuff. I remember it was on the shelves for a long time in the local store, a store called Rataplan in Ghent. It's a famous store that's closed now. And I remember saying to the owner, to Jan, like, do you have similar stuff, like, for example, In the Woods or Vedbu and Zende? And he was not really replying or suggesting. And this one was there like for a year or something. But he had these racks, and I don't know why I didn't take it. But then finally, when I got home with it, it was like, fuck, why didn't he suggest Fleurety? Because of the long songs. It's also a little bit similar to Forgotten Woods, but it's a totally different way of playing. But for the jazzy bass lines really stand out, which is a bit weird because we're talking about duo, and this band is really a duo of two people, but they often work with guest musicians. And the bass lines, which are really trademark of the album, is played by someone else, by a guy, I forgot the name. The only thing I know is that he had a project called I Left the Planet, which isn't that famous, but also contains quite famous members, like again, Carmichael from Vedbu and Zende is playing there, and then also some unknown people. I think they're playing rock bands, but if you go to Metal Archives, you can see it's like a connected web of people from some scene in Oslo playing folk music like Tuskmørke or something, and in one way they always end up on Fleurety. They have their second album, Department of Apocalyptic Affairs, which was said to be the most avant-garde album ever back then. But if you listen to it now, it's I thought it was mind-blowing. Now I think it's really crappy. But the whole scene plays on it. Maniac from Mayhem, Harm from Ulver. I think all of Ulver is playing, and then all these unknown people, and then they skip 2 albums, they return. So it's very fascinating. Like that, this Fleurety is really a band that has his tentacles over the whole scene. Like the guitar player Alexander from Fleurety was one of the earliest session members of Mayhem on their live tours, which is a bit weird because I think a year or 2 years before they were this typical poser band. They were called a poser band, Fleurety, because they were playing death metal. They were young, and then they skipped playing death metal in favor of black metal. And you know what happened then? All those bands were marked as, posers or untrue. And they were one of them. And they were tagged as such by the guys from Ulver when they were also just in their demo phase. And then only 2 years later, they're like bromancing.
I think the more harsh scene as we divide them in the harsh scene, and then I'm talking about Mayhem and stuff, so the Dead-like Silence stuff, and then the let's call it the avant-garde scene just to put a stamp on it.
Yeah.
I think the harsh scene kind of died out really quick. It's a very short period in time, and then you see the spectrum, because I think the harsh scene, like you said, was a reaction to death metal. I think Darkthrone kind of rapidly moved away from that black, and then I think it went 2 ways. You have the avant-garde scene, and you have stuff like Iljarn and then Neathog that take that harsh sound and make it even more minimalistic or more harsher in that way. And then the other side just exploded in a way that that the entire spectrum of that sound just got pulled open.
Yeah. I also think it must have something to do with the music or the mindset or the scene. I think in Oslo, because if you look at all the people who what they are doing now and what they were doing then, that they were just interested in music, and for a big part, they had this this room of black metal they were working in, but their mindset was going much further. Like you have Fenris from Darkthrone who really skipped the death metal idea and went for a totally primitive approach and going back. But at the same time, you can also see it at Euronymous. They had a huge, or they were open to other music like electronic music. They didn't mind listening to techno or something which was totally not done in Belgium or Germany. And of course, there was this label, Hot Records, who released this album, Headbangers Against Disco at the time, which was more a joke, because the whole scene was open to everything. And I think that's also a very important thing, that there were just people into music and they were cornered in black metal, but I think I wasn't there, I don't know them, but if you, as an outsider, I think they must have had many links, because they, after a year, at the beginning they were just fighting to each other because that's the thing, you're in this evil environment, but then they just became friends, and that's why I think it exploded in so many projects and different styles. But I didn't do any serious research. It's just my impression over the years, and
If you take the entire picture, and then I mean the end of the 80s until now, and you take just the Norway scene into consideration, I think black metal is just a blip on the radar, because if you look at it on a time period, it is maybe 88 to 96. That you can say it's the real black metal period where the Dark Throne trilogy, where the Mysterious Dom Satan already passed, where Burzum passed, and of course a lot of black metal records kept coming out. But I think in the grand scheme of things, it's just a little blip on the radar, and so many music styles that club or that group of people played. For example, Euronymous, which is seen as the ringleader. His knowledge or his interest in electronic music, like you said, like the Sylvester Anfang intro.
Yeah, for example.
They were into Tangerine Dream and all those, all those stuff. There is even a story that he, I don't know who wrote or that Sylvester Anfang, from who that piece of music is, but he went to the guy's house and he stayed at his door for like 1 or 2 till they let him in. But
it's the German guy from this electronic project.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself too, but
Yeah, me too. It's a very big project. Look it up.
I'll look it up.
It's not Klaus Schulze, but another one even.
It's one of those guys for
Is
sure.
it one of yeah? It's not Klaus Schulze, but
the Fleurety, by the way, was in '95. The demo was from '94.
Yeah.
Let's see. It is on Dead Crush. I'm not sure if I'm going to find it very soon. It is not important in the grand scheme of things, but
well, it's a nice story that he slept on his doorstep.
Yeah, Konrad Schnitzler.
Yeah, from.
So yeah, one of those.
That's what I want to know. Konrad
Schnitzler.
He is from.
I would say people are screaming right now, but
yeah, Tangerine Dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we already said it.
That should be like instant knowledge.
The fact that they had interest in stuff like that is, speaks to what he would have done maybe if he.
Yeah.
So soon. Yeah. But yeah, we will never know. To be complete about Fleurety, the bass player is called Per Amund Solberg.
Yep.
When I look at all the bands he has played in, I have, except for Fleurety, there is not one that I know.
For me, he's quite unknown too. If you go further and further, the other members are more known. Some are totally unknown, but it's a bit weird that I never heard from him apart from I Left the Planet.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. But it's interesting, and maybe I think we can close about Fleurety, but they also released 1 year ago, this album.
2 years ago, 1 year ago.
I don't know what year.
It's 2017.
4 years ago.
Time flies when you're.
And I really like it. It's very.
Oh, yeah?
It's a bit a return, or there's a song with again Carmichael from Vedwen Zend is singing. About I can't get it out the sleeve. Damn, it's sticky. Oh, even a gatefold.
Yeah. Trauma.
Yeah, Trauma is a bit irritating. This is the inside. But it's called the Ballad of Copernicus, which I can play 20 times in a row.
Okay.
Atmosphere. But I think you can see it a bit on the artwork too, that they're not that typical, this usual kind of black metal band.
No, I was going to say when you were in the record store in Ghent, why you did pick it up, I think, because I know the cover for a very long time, but maybe it's just because of the blue. But when you look through the blue, it's just a black metal cover. If it wasn't in gray or in black and white, it would be different, I think.
Yeah, but now I totally don't get why I didn't grab it, because it has everything, the font, the image, even the blue, which I would have liked, and I don't know why. Yeah, there's one fun anecdote about the title, which is Min tid skal komme, which is not that obvious for English-spoken people, but for us, even where I live now in the west of Flanders, it's like totally the same sentence or dialect for my time shall come. It's totally the same. I always thought it was really funny, and it had some influence on Alkerdale on making titles sound weird, but with a double bottom inside. This is really one of our major influences for titles.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I never put the spotlight on it, but now you have put the spotlight on it, and yeah, you can unsee it.
Yeah, it's West Flemish actually.
Yeah.
If you say "my time shall come" in Dutch, but then in the West Flemish dialect, it's totally similar.
Yeah, even in just the Dutch, mijn tijd zal komen is also similar.
Yeah.
For the completion, A Darker Shade of Evil is the demo, I guess, 7-inch from '94.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe a last thing, there was this very famous Blackened compilation in the 90s. They had two, Blackened 1, Blackened 2. Blackened 2 was not interesting. Blackened 1 had everything because they had many unreleased tracks, but it was full of writing mistakes. And one of them was having Fleurety written as Fleurety. I still think it's funny.
Well, what was the track on the new record that you liked?
The Ballad of Copernicus. I really like it. It's a bit sung of K, but I don't mind at all.
Okay. Yeah. Looking at all these records, I think the importance of Peaceful cannot be understated in all these things. I'm reading the book right now. Hammy is the book. And there are some really funny moments in there. All the crust stories are crust stories, of course, but the when Fenris and the other guy when they send in the first tree, they were like, "Are you kidding me with this? Please read." All those.
And they said you have to listen, and yeah. But they had it was one of the labels that I always checked out and almost bought blindly stuff at. And at the end of the 90s, I better had listened to some better because they released awful stuff. Like in this gothic death metal period, I was a huge My Dying Bride fan. But they had these bands like Dominion or The Blood Divine, which were like, oh crap.
Yeah, the sons and daughters of the My Dying Bride stuff.
Yeah. and now I think they get quite some backlash because of re-releasing so much. They don't release that many, but I don't care. But this was released on, I think, Aesthetic Death, a very small UK label. And now the band is on Peaceful, but back then they were just on a small underground label. I can't recall what other things they released Aesthetic Death. Maybe Esoteric, if I'm right, but I can be wrong.
Misanthropic Records and Aesthetic Death, and Aesthetic Death has stuff like Esoteric, and Entra, Wreck of Versus, Well and Way, Bone. Yeah, I don't see any big hitters, but probably all underground gems that I don't know. But yeah, no, I don't see too much. But yeah, a label that has been running for a long time, I think. All right. Yeah, Fleurety. It is definitely worth checking into, and probably when I listen to it again, there will be no Devil's Blood left in my ear. But I'm curious to listen to it again to see if I hear it again.
Yeah. Start with Black Snow.
Yeah.
And especially those vocals.
It's challenging in It's not that it's too over the top avant-garde or post or whatever you want to call it, but yeah, it is. I talked to you in previous episodes of this about your preconceived notions of what music will sound like, and then when it's maybe the complete opposite, it's kind of hard to link to the music. But that's why we're doing this, I guess. My first band is a very new band. They have been active since, I'm not sure. The full length was from 2020, so I guess 2020, and it is Deogen. It's this one. Deogen is one of the bands or projects that has come out of the Knife Vision label. That has a lot of acts actually, but the Geheimnisvoll is one of the more to my liking acts, but they have Nachtlicht and stuff like that, and those are bands that are spread over the entire new raw underground, if you will. So releases on Black and Green. Knife Vision always does the tape version, but then Black and Green and Alter and stuff like that, they pick up the vinyl version. Yeah, two younger guys, I think. I'm not sure. The record is called The Endless Black Shadows of Abyss. This one is on Black and Green. You have Knife Vision as the label. The group of people that is connected to this is the Carry On cult, which, for example, Geheimnisvoll falls under. And there's a lot of quality in those releases. Problem with picking one of these bands is that they have one record out, so there's not really much to talk about. But then, yeah, they have bands like Acousmatic Hate, Blinding Sun, which is a buddy of mine that does some great stuff in Philadelphia. Like I said, Geheimnisvoll, Grabesfeuer, so a lot of stuff. They got on my radar through the Russell Butler stuff. That's Edge War and those kind of guys. So there's a lot of links in the newer US black metal scene. Yeah, and their output is just, I wouldn't say mind blowing because it's all raw black metal, but within that scene, it is very worth checking out. Two guys, like I said, I think one is also behind the Nistang label. That once again do very good stuff, but all within that genre. Have you checked out records or anything?
Yeah, I checked out because I didn't know them, and what struck me, but I also checked on Metal Archives, of course, because I checked the similar artists.
Yeah.
And it was really fun to read about Obtained Enslavement, because this was this even Covenant. I didn't hear that much of Covenant and the music, but I did understood why they were referring to or linked to Obtained Enslavement, mostly because of the piano or parts that are in the music.
Yeah.
The vocals are totally else, because Obtained Enslavement has this singer from Gorgoroth with a really sharp voice, and they have more like a rough voice. And when you're saying that they're young guys, I think it's quite interesting. I don't know it was by consciously that they are influenced by Obtained Enslavement, because that's not a very famous band.
No.
They were signed by a bigger label in the end, but then they mellowed down a lot. But the early albums, even the first album, is more like a mix of grindcore and black metal. But the second and the third album is really typical late 90s melodic extreme black metal, not like Mactatus or something, not like Covenant, which is really wimpy, mellow, melodic black metal, but they were Gorgoroth style, piano infested black metal. And some people really like it. If I'm right, Maurice from Gnaw Their Tongues is really a fan. I used to have those albums, but it's not my cup of tea anymore. But sometimes I still listen to it. But especially on the second album, the keyboards are really like this Eastern German brass band or Walt Disney kind of happy keyboard stuff.
Yeah. Is that avant-garde? I don't know.
Maybe
We have
more. Maybe even more.
absolutely to clear out what avant-garde really is, but it's like
Yeah,
post-metal. That's also something like, yeah, where to begin and where to end. Everything.
yeah.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's something. What was the name of the band you mentioned again? Because I'm really not familiar with it.
Deogen.
Yeah, Deogen. It's something I will check out further, well, because I don't know where I should. Um, it's only by you I know this kind of music. So
The thing that struck me the most is that they have, I know their other output, like I said, the Geheimnisvoll is really strong within that scene. I think the Fever also, which is a bit more punk and
mhm.
maybe some industrial touches, so they also go all over the place. But the thing that struck me is that they come out of the gates with a full length. There's no demo material, and like I said, they have proven their strides in other projects maybe,
Mhm.
and to give such a full rounded off work like this, I think it's very yeah, it speaks to the talent these guys have. And
Mhm.
I was taken back because it took me. Black and Green always does these batches, so they release 3 records. You get them all free because when you see the Kringley logo, it's quality. And then when it clicked that they were also in Carrion Cults, I
Mhm.
started listening more, and I can hear, like you said, the obtained enslavement. And yeah, like you said, it is a weird connection to have. But I think when you see the broadness of their projects, I
Mhm.
think influences are equally as broad. And yeah, for
Yeah.
some reason, when it all goes back to Norway, and it seems they've done a lot in that country. Yeah, looking at their obtained enslavement, looking at their picture on Metallum, it's worth checking out.
It's what happened in the end of the 90s.
Yeah. What surprised me is that they have their last full length in 2000, The Shepherd and the Hounds of Hell.
Yeah. Have you seen the cover?
I am going to it right now. Yeah, I'll make sure to link that. Yeah, once again, a band that started in with their first full length in '94, demo material in '92. So,
Yeah, they're going way back. But like I said, I think they were early on a grindcore band.
okay. So
But
the demo material or before the demo material?
I even think the first album called Centuries of Sorrow, I
Okay.
think it's a mix of grindcore and black metal, and like a couple of not like mixing styles, but
Hmm.
separate numbers. Like a couple are more death grind, and others are black metal. Like each member could write a song, but I can be wrong. It's from my memory. I used to have the album, and
Yeah.
I remember it being like this schizophrenic album. But if you look at the lineup, I think two of them played in Gorgoroth. Then all the piano parts, which is the thing that made them famous, I think,
Yeah.
are played by Morgan, who was bass player by Aeternus, which was also quite a known band in the second wave.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a band that I that got on my radar, but I haven't delved into really.
if you have time, the Walk My Path uh,
Hmm.
demo or EP, and the
Yeah.
first two albums are really really good. I think.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know it's been re-released last year or the year
yeah,
before, so
I
they're
was really happy with it because I really like those albums. But then after it, it's more death metal. They
yeah,
tour with Decide and Morbid Angel, and that put its mark on the other songs, and then they evolved to a full death metal band. Yeah,
yeah. It's weird how that changes and how that metal again catched up with black metal.
yeah, and exactly.
I think the shine of the American bands like that and like Obituary and stuff like that, Morbid Angel.
Mm,
I think at that time was a bit more global they had more visibility than the underground scene. I think the underground black metal scene got visible through all the wrongdoings or the
Yeah. Also, many of those guys used to play in death metal, and they needed to change. Like Euronymous said, you can't play death metal; it's fault. So you're young, and then I can totally understand you start something else because it's more exciting. But that doesn't mean, you drop the music you used to like for so many years, and then you grow older, you start touring with those bands. So I think it's that it lit a fire again.
Yeah.
You saw it like Immortal too. They toured with big death metal bands, and then I think with Morbid Angel, and shortly after the tour they released Blizzard Beasts, which is just Morbid Angel with the Grieg Holland sound, and it's similar with Titanius. So again, I don't know why they did it, but I think it's a logical explanation.
I think it was in their chops to play it since they were all coming from that scene, or not that scene because there was no scene, but coming from that kind of music, and they also saw what bands like Morbid Angel were reaching.
So I think if you went to those shows, I remember the same. I wasn't a death metal fan, but we went to see Obituary, Cannibal Corpse, Marduk, Immortal on the same evening, and I think those death metal bands were much stronger and heavier than the fuzzy black metal bands. So I think that's also something, like you play in front of an audience, that those guys said, oh, there's much more fun playing, some catchy riffs than these ice cold whatever riffs that are sounding really bad back then live.
I think the punch that Morbid Angel packed at a live gig or at a live venue, that it's like you said, that thingy sound that that a black metal produces.
Look at Behemoth. It's similar.
Even Satyricon in some way.
Yeah. I think he also tasted the smell of success by touring with Pantera and a couple of lines of coke.
Yeah, the sunglasses came out and they were gone.
And the hand clapping and
Satyricon, I think my entry point for that band was the Age of Nero, really late.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that was full on big stage.
Big
stage. That's Satyricon.
I heard that album, but I never was into it.
I still remember. I think I still have the CD. There was this one track, Black Crow or something, or Black Crow on a Tombstone.
Yeah.
Drops. You can just you can hear they made that song for the stage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it's kind of funny working your way back. You discover a CD like that, and then to finally see what is behind all that all that. Great. Deogen. I think we rounded off and again went to Norway. So let's stay in Norway. You have picked Satyricon.
Yep.
Right at the right time, I think, because they re-released their two first bangers.
Yeah, that's the exact reason why I chose them, because of the re-release of those iconic albums, which haven't been released on vinyl since their first release, except from these well-known bootlegs who were said to be released by Satyr himself. I don't know if it's true, but that's a rumor. And I'm really happy they re-released it, because I didn't have them on vinyl, and the original ones were too expensive.
Yeah.
There was also this box with the first three. I remember that was also in our record store, but These were picture discs, so
Okay.
I'm not a fan of it was a beautiful release, but it were picture discs. So
At that time, if you buy picture disc now, that's totally different
yeah,
story. But time, yeah.
yeah,
Maybe just buy them for the picture disc, but not
yeah.
for the album.
So
So now
I'm going to grab them, just show them one by one. This is the first Dark Medieval Times. I will show them into detail short in a minute. And this is the Shadow Throne. And there was quite some fuss about it because it's not the original release or the original artwork. I mean, like this one, Dark Medieval Times used to have this castle drawing, charcoal or I don't know what drawing, but similar to Detsamang Hanvar of Burzum, quite a childish drawing. And in the inside, now I'm going to the inside. I hope you can see it. This is the back side with the famous pictures and the frames. A gatefold with this typical modern or late 90s, early 2000s satirical design. And the typical frames by Frost. And on the inner sleeve, there's a story by a guy, I think he's an editor from some magazine, and a very, very interesting interview with Satir. It's really interesting because it gives lots of details, how the album was recorded, the time. Also, for the nerds, some misunderstandings are corrected, like on Metal Archives. It was on Metal Archives, it was said that it was released in '94, but it was released in '93. So this is corrected by now. Also, why he changed the artwork, but there, to me, it's a very he's hitting a nerve because I really, really can't understand why you have this really nice drawing by Kittelsen, the famous Norwegian artist. Why they use this, I don't. This is typical. The background is a typical Google old paper kind of thing. Then these frames of Frost didn't age very well either. No. Maybe on the backside, but not in large. Why didn't he put the whole drawing just filled? And it's a weird choice. Also, yeah. I understand people not liking it for this one because the drawing of the bird is really nice. I think it's a miss chance. I don't want to be like this, moaning about design, but still, yeah, I can understand people. For me, it doesn't matter if it's not the same cover as the original. I don't care about that.
But maximize.
I can't understand the design choice.
This looks like a backside, actually. Backside to a record and not a front cover. So.
Yeah, I know this cover was used just black on black with the bird as a bootleg.
Wasn't it used for the Peston?
Yeah, and it maybe that's because he didn't. I don't know. It's just a thought about it, but
I think there's a possibility that we are looking at the full image, or have you seen the actual painting of this?
Well, that was something, but that was I was going to talk about later because I have this a very old book of the author, and this image is inside, and I wanted to show the book in relation to the whole thing. So now you're mentioning, I'm going to take it.
Okay.
So I was talking with my good friend Michiel Eikenaar about Kittelsen and about the books back in the day. Yeah. And because he was also a designer and we liked a lot of stuff. And I had found this book of Theodore Kittelsen. For people who don't know,
just the cover alone is amazing.
Yeah, it's really nice. The technique of this is like for old wallpaper, and they put this. Sometimes it's like dripped in water where ink is floating on, and you drip it on it, and then you have this motif. But when I look at it, I'm doubting if it's more like a silk screen. I don't know. The motif is more like this dripping technique, but if when I'm looking closely, it's more silk screen. I don't know. But what the hell? It's a really nice book I found. It's from 75. It's totally in written in Norwegian. If you understand it, it must be really interesting. This is the this is the inside, but a lot of the famous pictures are inside.
Okay.
You know, like with the trolls, or even more famous. And then I think we're coming to what you were saying, to the bird.
There you go.
Pesta Kommer, the pest is coming. He made so he was a romantic illustrator from the end of the 19th century, I think, maybe earlier, I don't know. And when he was living in Lofoten, which is a island, a couple of islands in the northwest of Norway, there were dark times, and he was making drawings about the pest in 1342, I think, in Norway, that totally raised the population of Norway to, I don't know, a couple of percents. And lots of his work is about that period and the medieval times, the pest, which is what was Satyricon was all about back in the day. Here, pest is coming.
Yeah.
Referred to as an old woman, more known like from the book, the cover of Burzum. One more. Pest is coming. There she is again. So it's a really nice book for people who maybe who are interested. It's maybe Tom will write it down.
Yeah, probably.
In the info, I will give it to Tom. The details for people, because I think you can still find it. It's a really nice book. So more about Satyricon and Kittelsen. The first album was a lot about medieval times. It wasn't even the music is totally based on medieval music. The title says it itself, dark medieval times, but there's no really folk in it. Many people say there's also folk in it, but that's only on the Shadow Throne. It's also written down in those liner notes. Like that's the big difference between the two. Dark medieval times, the music is influenced by medieval music, while the Shadow Throne is influenced by Norwegian folk music. And the whole theme is about this period in the medieval times, about the pest in Norway. And that's why even the bird is on the cover, because all these drawings by Kittelsen are about the pest in Norway. So it's totally linked to each other. And you also hear it in the music, the atmosphere, it's all makes sense.
It should be considered that the image is so important that was the only solution. If you blow it up to a square, it wouldn't fit. If you could do something else. For example, the border Kittelsen did in the book, or that someone did in the book next to the picture, is 10 times than the border on the record.
But it's only a minor issue. I'm really happy with the album. The sound is really good. People were afraid. The sound is much better on the Shadow on Dark Medieval Times, because even back then in the day, I don't think they even did any mastering. I think it was just recorded, and they didn't do a special vinyl mastering. And to me, it sounds really powerful, full of detail. So that's cool. What's also nice, and I didn't know that, is that all the typesetting like here,
Mm-hmm.
was all done by Frost by hand, and that he's a really good typewriter, and maybe that's a good jump to the Shadow Throne, because he also did the font of the Shadow Throne,
Which I totally adore.
Yeah, it's I even since the end of the 90s, when I was doing my early steps as a designer, I was wondering where the hell do they get these fonts?
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't internet, there wasn't dafont.com. So I'm really happy or surprised to read that it was done by Frost. When you take a look at Dark Medieval Times, there you can imagine a young dude, imitating medieval fonts with some, this curly typical black metal stuff. But then, it was early. There wasn't that much typical black metal stuff. But when you look at the Shadow Throne, it's very, stylish, elegant. I really like it. Much more than his stupid frames.
Yeah, and even the Satyricon logo, which I was never a fan of. It's too tribal for me.
Yeah, but this is like a better version, because if you take a look at the old logo,
Mm-hmm.
it's much more primitive. This
Yeah,
is very streamlined.
streamlined. I
But
looked at when you look at the Shadow Throne, the logo now reminds me of another duo that we know well, the Urfaust. Like this, the upstanding,
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
girls here and there.
Uh-huh.
Reminds me of it. But yeah, now that you once again put a spotlight on it, it is very elegant and nicely done.
Yeah. And again, the cover made even because this one, the cover, the backside is totally not interesting at all, I think. But the cover, again, it's totally different from the original iconic album, and many people are complaining, oh, it's not a vague purple cover. And Satir is explaining in the liner notes that it was a vague picture of a guy or some creature walking under a tree, and it was too vague, and he doesn't like vague things. He's referring to Beyond the Gates or to Megatherion to be very, straightforward covers. And he said, that's something I like. It shouldn't be vague to me. And that's why I changed it for the re-release. And when I saw it online, when the albums were announced, I was a bit, in doubt. But now I see it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And it's made again by a romantic painter I didn't know, he was called Harald Solberg. Never heard of it. A
No.
romantic painter. He was related to Munch, for example. But I
Oh,
really liked it. But the original one is much, much more colorful. They put it much darker for this release, but doesn't matter. It's a nice one.
I've only seen a bootleg version of the Shadow Throne once because I ordered it for a friend of mine. So it was here for a while. It was at the beginning of Corona, so I had it here. But it was a bootleg. But when you look at the original, even the original feels like a bootleg just because it's so faded out. And then,
Yeah.
I know the people in their head that is the cover and it's the classic cover, but that once again those preconceived notions. You know that cover and everything that
Yeah.
that is a bit different than that one will totally suck in my opinion, and in someone's opinion, not in my opinion. I
Mm-hmm.
don't care much about it. The only thing I have, I think the insight for the Dark Medieval Times is 10 times better than the Shadow Throne, but
Yeah.
maybe because it's more classic.
Yeah. But that's also this typical Satyricon end of the 90s, 2000 kind of design.
Yeah.
Start doing this. It's done by the same designer, I think. I looked it up. It's Halford Bodin. And if I'm right, he had this studio called Union.no,
Mhm.
which is now like more, when you look at online, it's like an agency for, selling houses. So
Yeah.
it doesn't exist anymore. But this was his style. But the answer, I think it's a bit, a bit lame again. Uh,
Yeah.
you have this, and
I
then this, and then
font, but
this. again a missed chance. And the inner sleeve, again, nice stories. Actually, I really recommend the releases because although the cover artwork might be a bit, make you doubt, I understand it, but the sound is really good, especially for the Shadow Throne, which it was the keyboards were much more dominant on the original ones. Now you hear the riffs and the guitars, but then also the liner notes. I think it's really interesting. And I used to be a big Satyricon fan, until Volcano, I think. And then, I don't know, I loathed them, but still had some respect. So I'm not saying this because I'm the big Satyricon fan. It's like, it's my honest opinion about it.
For all the people complaining about the covers, I think they are selling like hotcakes because I see them pop up everywhere. Just because a lot of people were, waiting for so long. Even the bootleg, I'm not going to name who bought it, but I think he paid like 100 or 120 for it, just for the most recent bootleg of that record.
Yeah, but that's weird because I also saw the bootlegs once and they were like scanned from the CD covers or something. And all those Moonfolk albums were bootlegged, and they always had this really bad quality. And then still, it's fun that this rumor is going on that it's a satyr who was doing it himself. I don't know if it's true, but still, it's fun.
People admit to it. Yeah, man. They are part of the classic canon, I guess.
Yeah.
And they're here to stay. The last band I have is Bone Owl.
Yeah.
I don't know if you are familiar with them.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I am.
They came up in the podcast before, I think, because they are on my mind a lot lately. They are a duo out of the United States, out of California, and they are, if you say the previous bands, Deogen and everything they do is prolific, these guys are even more prolific. They have 2 or 3 labels. They have many side projects besides Bone Awl. I think I don't have too much of them because they are one of those bands that have like maybe 2 full lengths that I have, and then a shitload of splits, EPs, tapes. They have a lot of output. Sound wise, it is I wouldn't say ill-jorn worship, but it's closely linked to that sound. It is punk influenced black metal, harsh in some places, and live it is even more mind-blowing. They have links to the Capuzzo Negro scene in California because Volan, one of the guys in that scene, plays live bass for them too. So there's this big web that I'm just now exploring for Bone Awl, because Bone Awl is so prolific and so expansive that it took me a while to get, well, not through it because I don't want to get through it, but just to invest time in it, to listen to it. And you have to be in the mood, just like you say you do. Not something you put on every time or every day. The first full length is this one. It's called Meaningless, Leaningless. Came out on, I have to see what year, I'm not 100% sure. 2007. Through Nuclear War Now. A very cool architectural collage tower. And then the second full length is An Obelisk Marks the Line, and this was from last year. And this came out on Klaxon Records, which is their label. It says Klaxon is done on Metallum, but I don't know, since they are still putting out records, I don't know where that rumor comes from. I hope not, because they are an excellent label. They do Wagner Oedegaard, they do Fleurety, they do a lot of stuff that is really worth checking out. But yeah, this was the EP that came right before that, The Lowest Road. This was actually a duo pack with the full length, but then it was so limited that they decided to re-release it. And then the last thing I have is their Undying Glare 7-inch. Yeah, sound-wise, it is not a big world of difference, or a big, no, it's not that they all of a sudden dive into some avant-garde sounds to get that word back to the forefront. But yeah, they are, for what they are doing, they are one of the bigger bands, in air quotes, in the US scene.
Mm-hmm.
How did they came to you, or how did they come on your radar?
By Aquarius Records from LA.
Okay.
I don't know if you know the store.
Yeah, I noticed. I've never been, but I noticed.
Yeah. I think it closed down by now. But when we started that period with Alkerdale, was 2007, that period. I often went to their website because they had a lot of reviews and sound clips. And when we released the demo, one of the artists that were mentioned that were similar was like for fans of Bone Awl. And that's how I was or am introduced to them. And I understood the link, like you said, with Ildjarn. And I didn't follow them until now because they went a bit off my radar. Always liked them, but for some reason I didn't follow them strongly enough. I knew they released or they did stuff with raspberry bulbs, with the pink covers, which were enjoyable, but for some reason not enough to delve into. But for this conversation, I went again looking for more information, and then I was really surprised, like you said, the influence or the other projects they were doing. And one of them was Kestrel. I don't know how to pronounce.
We pronounce it the French way, but it's probably more an American sounding pronunciation.
Yeah, probably. Which was one of the. It was Omar from Turia who suggested to give it a listen. And I was surprised that they had links with bands because I really, really liked it. More no band was Sirius. That's something I again have to discover more. But that Kestrel, whatever band, I really enjoyed. It only has a tape. And then to discover a couple of days ago that they had links with Bone Awl was, for some reason I understand. It's a huge difference, but still, I understand a little bit of that some people are involved within that project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have some output that is like the Sirius record you talked about. That's one that It's not that it's an expensive record, but it doesn't show up a lot.
No.
I think it's bought by people who like the record and who keep the record. It's not available on the secondhand market too much. But yeah, all their, like you said, the Raspberry Bulb, for what that is, because that's not black metal, that's more not even, or it's basically thinking man's snotty punk, to put it in some weird perspective. For example, the first vinyl I got from them, I bought in a Gabber store in Rotterdam.
Oh,
all places. So no, it's not a Gabber store, but it's like it was. I'm blanking on the store name, but I came in and it never happened. I went through the bins and I didn't know any record. that's not how that works usually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I found, I think it's Worship Him or something with Worship, and I found that there. I said, yeah, okay, I have to take this one.
Hard to find these albums from Raspberry Bulbs.
I think if you want the tape versions, maybe a bit more. But the vinyl records, it's been a while since I looked because I have some of their output. Okay. I think I have 3.
Because I know one in a close by in a second-hand store, if you're interested.
I think I have 2 or 3 from them. So once again, it should be one that I don't have. But yeah, get it for yourself, maybe.
I'm doubting.
not essential, probably. But yeah, they have links to so many good bands. I think I have two more that I just got to know last week. That's how much there is. But this is Grand Mood, which is worth checking out. This is one or two of the guys in Bone Owl, and then combined with guys from this band, and this is called, I have to read again, Purdy Dirk or Purdy Dirk. I'm not sure, but once again, one of those bands that is hard to pronounce.
It's also linked to Sirius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it's a fun name because it's like the Swedish cook from the Muppet Show, who is saying something.
Is he called Sirius? No, he's called the Swedish Chef.
Yeah, the Swedish chef, like Ferdy Dirty. Yeah. Ferdy Dirty.
Chicken and some flour and put off
chicken in the box.
Yeah, so like I said, there's to discover with them. Their names, the vocal guitar bass is he who gnashes teeth, and the drums is he who crushes teeth.
It's perfect.
I looked it up. It is the two goats that pull the chariot of Odin or something like that.
Oh, that's nice.
Even more. They have some leanings into the NS world here and there, but that's mostly through their Klaxon label, I think.
Well, that was something I wanted to ask about, because that's really weird. Because Bone Awl is like, I thought it was more punk.
Yeah.
They come from a punk background,
yeah.
And then they did stuff on the Relapse Records, or I think, and then I heard like Sirius or Kestrel have those link with the NS kind of stuff.
I wonder if it's the internet that decided that they have links to NS, or that, I don't know. I think Klaxon has some records that are closely linked to some guys in that scene who play on a record, but
yeah,
especially since the one of the guys, that Marco Del Rio, who is one of the guys, like you said, is in Raspberry Bolts, is very involved in punk and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. It doesn't really matter. It's something that I can't connect those two worlds. That's why it's worth bringing up. Yeah. That's all. Yeah, Bone Awl, for people, like I said, who delve into the world of Ildjarn, maybe check them out too. I don't think we are hyping anybody to Bone Owl. I'm not sure. There are always people who haven't heard it, of course, and I think there's a whole world to discover.
Checking out, especially if you can see them live, or just check the live clips. I saw some of the shows. I think they were playing that famous bar in New York, CBG. That one that closed down.
CBG?
Yeah, and that they were playing there, and that Thurston Moore of Sonic Youth was like queuing. I think it was one of these kind of bands like Bone Awl that pulled him to.
You have to see.
Extreme of black metal or black metal.
But Thurston Moore is more than interested in black metal, because he played on the last Twilight record. Also.
Yeah, but it was before that, I think. So it was, I don't know, but the same period. I don't know why Thurston Moore or how he came acquainted by it, but it's one of those stories that I read years ago. Like Bono was playing, making a fuss, and who was in line? Thurston Moore. And then a couple of, or maybe a year later or 2 years later, he was playing with Twilight. Yeah. So before, I never heard the link of Sonic Youth and black metal. Sonically, there is a link, I think, but like people from the band interested, and then I think because Bone Awl is going on for a long time already. They're not newcomers. They're not new in the scene or
2002.
Yeah, so I think they that the whole or pushed or drew a lot of interest to them. That maybe pushed the whole American scene much more up front. and I mean the American scene. Of course, you had Demon Sea or Apsu or Grand Belize K. That's a totally different world or scene. It's totally different.
It's basically the same conversation I had with Charlie from Crypt. If you compare to the England scene, we were making, like a tree branch where it started, and of course you have Cradle of Filth, you have Hakaton and Throne and stuff like that. But if you take that scene and you put it aside, and then you start with the white metal stuff, it's basically the same story, but then transatlantic.
Yeah.
That a white metal or a Legion Bloodhound as a label just pushes the entire new wave of UK black metal, if you will. That I think now has one of the more stronger scenes going at this point. If you see what's happening there, label wise, band wise. So yeah, it is. You need one of those pivotal bands, even how small they are, just to push something. I was hoping it was going to start here too in Belgium with bands like the Moonen or the Perverted Ceremonies or even Forbidden Temple, but there is no. It's maybe too young, because when you see something like Bone Awl or white metal, it's all early 2000s. So maybe here it's a bit too young. I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe also because I don't know. It's a good discussion. But maybe the guys from Moonen or Perverted are too much laid back. They do a lot
for sure
themselves, but they don't play live, and maybe you can't compare.
No, probably not. Just wishful thinking in my head that there would be more.
Maybe within a couple of years, Medieval Prophecy, for example, is doing.
Yeah.
It's becoming more and more and more.
Prophecy, and then the label from Verviers, or the bands from Verviers, Rempart Immortel, which is also another label that does great stuff. Just not only Belgium, but they did the Nuit Noire and the Sarka outputs and stuff like that. So there is some spots in Belgium that are really alive and that are even some.
It's more alive than maybe 10 years ago. You have Ramschap, then you have the tape label who does Iscariot and all the side projects of Cosmocrator. So I haven't seen that in years. Many different people, different projects, people I don't know. Mostly we know everybody. And now there are lots of labels or bands starting I haven't heard of, and I don't know who they are. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I also think that Corona cracked it a bit, because I was at the point that you were getting to know these people just by going to gigs and going to
probably.
But yeah, it will maybe come back.
Because Corona is over.
Corona is over, yeah?
Yeah.
I had my first shot, so I should be.
When you watch soccer, you can see it's over.
Yeah, that's true. I think it will start over because of soccer.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Speaking of gigs, I saw, or I bought a ticket for one of yours. So you're playing soon with Alkerdeel.
How soon you mean?
November?
Yeah. Maybe sooner.
Maybe sooner. Well, we'll talk after the show.
Yeah, but cool. Yeah.
Maybe sooner. So the release show is back on the docket, maybe?
No, the release show, there isn't a release show. There was this gig with Vedbu and Zende that was called a release show and then postponed for a year. But it's not a release show anymore. It's just a unique, regular gig.
As long as I get to see both bands, I'm good.
Looking forward.
Yeah, probably. We went through all four, I think, and we had the hour mark about 19 minutes ago. So, do you have anything you have been listening to? Something new, maybe, to check out?
Badly prepared, but yes. Now I totally rearranged my new vinyl section, so it's easy. But I don't know if I mentioned the last time. I don't know, but this album I've been listening to in loop since it arrived a couple of days ago. It's called Pocolus.
Oculus, yeah.
Now I have to think. I think from Lithuania. I can be
Yeah,
wrong.
I was thinking Poland, but it's probably Lithuania.
It's from one of the Baltic
I'll look
states,
it up. That's
and I used to have it on a tape, not the original tape, but by tape trading, and mostly because the guy it's quite some cult band, but also he has this project called Halela, which I also really like, and unfortunately, it's not available on vinyl. Halela is even more folk. It's, I think, a bit, how do you say it, wrong. Sometimes when you a bit cringy at times, but
yeah,
still original and really good. And I had been listening a lot to Halela, and that's why I revisited Poculus. And also because I remembered it was re-released, and I was really happy to find a label that it was still available, because
yeah,
it's mostly sold out everywhere. It's
yeah.
a really nice re-release. They put a lot of effort in it. It's a gatefold with the text translated in English and the probably
Yes,
Lithuanian language. But most importantly, how does it sound? It's like, I think, a mix of, the old recordings of Behemoth, but the really old ones, from the Pagan Wastelands, or the Forest Dream Eternally, mixed with Graveland, Thousand Swords era,
mhm.
but most importantly, Forgotten Woods. There's lots of Forgotten Woods in this, like this, primitive, simple, hypnotic lines, a high-pitched voice, but Burzum alike, and then with these typical traditional um, interludes of probably Lithuanian. I think it's Lithuanian
Yeah,
folk music. The sound is good. It's all very organic. Um, I think maybe by chance, because it didn't have that much money, but the drums sound natural. There's bass. The guitars are good. Very recommended.
I when I did my order at Crypto the Wizard, the last thing I added was this record because it had
Oh,
on the side recommended, highest recommended by Charlie or something, was
yeah, yep,
said, you know what, throw it in. And
yeah,
once again, it was one of those records that I had maybe a sound in my head how it was going to sound. I put
yeah.
it on, like, oh Jesus, what is this?
You didn't like it?
But it's not that I don't like it, but when you go in cold and you hear it for the first time, the vocals are really, like you said, that cringe that it has a bit. The vocals are really weird. If you
Yeah,
a, a over the top harsh, maybe black metal record, and then yeah, I'm not. I most of the time I kind of have a problem with folk influenced stuff. That's why it overtook me a long time just to get into.
yeah.
But it's starting to grow on me for sure. Yeah.
Then I think the other band Halela will be very difficult for you, but
Oh,
still it's really good. Maybe I'm too nostalgic about it.
I'll put it.
It's called Pabudimas, if I pronounce it right. A good friend of me had it on CD,
Yep.
and I copied the CD from them years ago when it came out. And it's I totally understand when you say it's cringy, because now, maybe 20 years later, I think it's cringy indeed. But still, the atmosphere is, you don't hear it anymore now. Back then it was original, but nowadays I can even appreciate it more.
Yep.
The natural, the feeling of nature he wanted to um, mix into the music, and um, it's very heavy and dark, like a heavy wind coming forth from the
Yep.
music. And Yeah, many people like, the band Druk,
Mhm.
and that's Druk, maybe 5 years earlier or something. It's the
Yeah,
same atmosphere. And of course, it's not, very fashionable now. Other music is more, liked, but it has its merits, and even more, it's really good music, but it's not fashionable at the moment. And
I think the strong point is how individual it sounds, how yeah
yeah,
you and
there you go.
yeah
That's the right thing. It's sounding really individual. There's
yeah
no other album sounding like
it
that,
is
or Poculus.
I think
Maybe even Poculus is more, has more length, but Halela, I don't know.
okay. I'll
Maybe that's a good thing for another episode, but unfortunately, it's hard to. I don't have those bands on vinyl, and we still talk about vinyls. But like, for example, there's Halela, there's Potentium from Iceland. There's so many albums that came out. Sadness from Switzerland is also such a band who released two very, iconic albums, but you can't find them on vinyl.
is
But
it because they're so expensive or because of the limitation?
I don't think they have ever been released on vinyl.
Ah, that's something else. Okay,
Yeah,
they're just
and hmm?
just CD versions then.
Yeah, but they have also this, what you were saying, individual, you know, mark on them, and that's really interesting, I think. But
I think
they're often forgotten because they weren't famous and they did only one or two albums.
yeah, it's something hopeful that a label like the Inferna Performance that does the vocalist to
Yeah,
that degree because the cover is incredible. The spine is like, I mean, if you put it on the other side of the room, you can pick it out because the spine is like,
yeah. It's really nice with the motive and
yeah.
stuff.
I think the fact that they give it that treatment maybe is hopeful for the future that the other releases will also follow. But
Yeah.
who knows? I have a small 7-inch that came out yesterday.
Ah, you
I
already have it.
yeah, I just jumped on it because I have this standing order with Joel that if he has a box full, he just ships it to me. He
Yeah,
had and I had the Alter trio there, so I just said ship it because I want to hear it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's once again a very nifty little 7-inch by the Perverted Ceremony guys. I like slash love the pictures once again. Those basement creeps.
I haven't seen those yet.
It is a bit bare bone. I love the layout. You know, the blue works. I talked about it in a video that's coming up or that's coming before this. But you know how the orange works with the blue in the cover, and then the pictures on the back. It
Yeah.
even has big center hole, 7-inch.
Oh,
So it's a very nice produced. I think Medieval Prophecy. I said it before. There is not one stinker in their lineup for now.
it's
And
released by Medieval Prophecy.
sorry,
It's released by Medieval Prophecy also. Okay. Because I want to know where they make these big holes.
where they make the big holes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where they make the big holes. You can ask him, but I'm not sure. Yeah, not sure. But yeah, any output by these guys is very welcome, and these are two very strong tracks. I even love the title "Cavernous Hallucinations." It conjures up some images like this. But yeah,
And so
I-
many, there's this more even psychedelic influence.
on
Uh,
this one,
yeah,
yeah,
there's more keyboards, these weird keyboards in the music more
yeah,
than they did before.
yeah,
So
dragged down a bit. It's a bit slower than not that they were lightning fast,
mhm.
but it seems like it drags just a little bit more than their earlier output. So not sure where they're going from here, but a full length would be nice. Another full length would be nice
Yeah,
because I think they have one full length, right?
I don't know which are the EPs or the full lengths. I don't know. There's
There we go. Ceremony. Yeah, of course, a lot of rehearsals. The Sabbath of Baesiel is considered a full length. Then they have the split Witchcraft, and then the self-titled, and this one are the singles and EPs.
and the one with the goat.
The one with the goats. That is with the painting, right? Where they lift up, where you see the balls of the goat.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's semantics, but there are 2 tracks on here with an intro, so it's considered.
Oh, okay.
I don't know length of the tracks. I don't know if that is. Yeah, there's no length on here.
Yeah.
But it's considered as an EP, where the Sabbath of Baesiel has, maybe 10 or 12 tracks on here. So
yeah,
it would be cool to have a more fully recorded or fully fleshed out record by them, but all in good time, I think. All in good time.
Yeah, they have had the Corona period to compose a lot, so who knows what will come out.
I guess they were a bubble, the 2 guys.
I think so.
The only other thing I have, I'll jump the line because I want to talk about this one. The Met Oprechte Deelneming van Kwade.
Yeah, Kwade Droes.
I always liked their output, but it's one of those bands that I don't think I'm saying anything new that they are Oerfaust related. At least I think so. Their EP and then the first full length was material that I got in, that I listened to, that I like fine. But for some reason, this keeps returning to the turntable. I have no idea why, but it speaks to me more in the sense that, I have no idea why, because there is no huge difference between the first full length and the second full length. It is basically the same sound. It's just more tracks by them. Mm-hmm. Is it because the last they say that this is their eulogy, so they are basically done? But how the skits or the intros work with the sounds and the music, I listened to it at the wrong speed for the first 2 or 3 times. That says something, I guess. But,
too fast or too slow?
Too fast or too slow? I can't remember. I think too slow, because I think it was I'm still not sure, but I think it's a 40.
Sometimes it can benefit the listening experience, or it's better, because I used to have this, or a friend of me had this Ildjar Nidhoch split 7-inch, and that's 45 RPM, and I listened to 33, and it was much slower and perfect.
Sometimes it works, especially in black metal.
Try to track it down, that the split, and slow it down, and it's wonderful. I'm also drinking rosé wine. That's why everything's wonderful at the moment.
Yeah, a Wild West.
Yeah.
Good. There is one in your background, that I wanted to ask about, the PVS, is it? Plus, yeah. It's a Babylon Doom Cult release.
Yes, but unfortunately, I haven't had the time to listen it. Okay. I know it's also from Southern America, and you said, you, the owner of Babylon Doom Cult, said, please don't mix it with Mbunche, because I released that album, and now this, it's the one doesn't have to do with the other. It's a coincidence, because here I really like it. This is even more punk. I remember listening it like online to it, but I can't tell much more about it because I haven't had the time to listen it decently. But it's a nice release. With a folded sleeve.
Yeah.
And just in short, although it's different from Mbunche or Ildjarn, but it's that area.
Yeah.
But if you can, it's high quality.
Yeah.
So you can buy it blindly.
It looks a bit more glossy, and it sounds a bit more glossy than something like Mbunche.
Yeah, probably. but I should listen to it, you know,
Yeah.
Decently when I have time.
Looks a bit street punk more than it looks black metal.
Yeah, yeah. It has this cover with, you know, this decapitated Jimi Hendrix kind of dude,
Yeah.
and
And the balaclava guy behind him.
And if you look very closely, you can see all the. I don't know if it will be clear on the screen, but all the members wear the same cape. So maybe they had to share a rehearsal room or something with the Jimi Hendrix kind of dude.
Old guy.
Yeah, poor guy.
All right. Did you have something else? Because I cut you off with the post.
Oh, these are the new ones. The only new one I have. Also, it's an old one, a re-release, First Spell of Gehenna.
Okay. What label put that out?
I think it's Indie Records, and
Wow.
with a very shitty inner cover, like flames, a picture of a campfire, and then a blurry logo. I think it's crappy, but I like the cover.
Yeah.
But this to be like a whining guy again. A big label that doesn't put much of effort in a re-release of a classical album.
Yeah.
I think it's really
They're quite a big label, too, right? They're quite a big label within the scene.
It's a major, I think, indie records.
If you compare the Inferno performance, what they did with the record.
There you go. Yeah. Or yeah, it's a bit done cheap as, but I'm happy to have it because it also contains, and that's very important. There are two vinyls. It also contains the Black Seared Heart. Is it a demo or EP?
Probably, yeah.
Which is quite hard to find. I don't know it was released on vinyl yet, but now it's released all together, and it's like, you know, I really like early Gehenna. Although it has keyboards and it's a bit cheesy, but it's like a must-have for you know, the history of Norwegian metal.
I kind of like the logo too, which is also a bit cheesy, but still.
Yeah, it's typically from that time. Yeah, but it's a weird band because they had you know, a weird evolution. They were quite mellowish, doomish, lots of keyboards, and then with the second album, Seen Through the Veils of Darkness, was a bit more quicker, and then on Malice they went totally like all the doomish mellow sounds disappeared in favor of this. It wasn't you know, the Moonfog sound. That's like this tag that was put on a lots of bands that were satirical related. Gehenna Malice was years before, but in some way, it's close to what Satyricon did during Rebel Extravaganza or even before. But from then on, they even went to Moonfog and released Admiral Black, and thrash and death metal began to interfere. Not thrash metal like you could hear D-Side or Morbid Angel in it, but like more like also Behemoth went that way. Not the Nile kind of Behemoth, but how was the album called? Yeah, whatever. I can't recall it, but more Black Death. And then the album after it was even more death metal, kind of death metalish, and then they returned again to being like a typical Norsecore or Norwegian black metal band. But in fact, all releases are high quality, I think. Some are a bit more interesting than than the others, but it's all very interesting. I also really like the singer. I think it's Sanrap, who has a really strong voice. On this album, until Malice, I think they were two singers, Dolgar and Sanrap. Sanrap has this more yelling voice, not high pitched yelling, but it's not hardcore, but like really strong yelling, while Dolgar was the more screaming, also no high pitch, but with the crackling voice, or how do you call it, voice?
The breaking scream voice.
Yeah. So yeah, it's nice to have.
Yeah. Yeah, I see here the first spell is from 94 and the Black Sacred Heart is from 93, so even earlier than.
Yeah, and you can hear it on the recordings that I think it was, they only have, the tape I used to have was really low quality and it has this bending tone in it.
Okay.
Similar to, that's a very famous one, if you know it. You have this Nordic metal tribute to Euronymous on Necropolis, and there's this unreleased Mortis track on it, and it was just sent to him on a tape, and it was also this bending because the tape was broken, and this sounds exactly the same like my old tape trading tape that went from guy to guy to guy to guy, and it's as bad as the version I had.
There's no way to fix it, probably.
Yeah, probably not.
The original, knowing or thinking about it, is probably just dubbed on tape, and that was the master tape that was fucked.
Probably, yeah.
My explanation, I guess. Yeah.
But yeah, it's charm.
It has its charm. Yeah, it's weird that they put it like that on a vinyl, but if there's no other way, then there's no other way, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't think even with modern mastering, there's no way to pull that out.
I don't know.
You have to speed up
the
individual part and then put the puzzle together, and that is.
Yeah.
Sound
I
bad.
know. Also, Mysticum from Norway re-released on Lost Masters of the Universe all their old material, and I remember having it also on tape, also in really awful quality, and they actually did a rather good job. I remember them mailing to people, "Do you have still a tape, an original one?" And they were really sending, or even VHS tapes from gigs or stuff, trying to have everything, and they did quite a good job.
Okay. Yeah, you can imagine the bootleg that drops in your hands, how it's been around the world. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. Even before internet, it's crazy to think about how that shit worked.
Yeah, that was fun.
All right. Well, we are almost at the 2-hour mark. That is not bad for our comeback, if you will. Last time I rewatched the video and we were so tired. It was apparent that we needed much more sleep. Yeah, let's keep it at this. We talked about doing female vocals. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that will be the next episode because let's face it, not because it's female vocals, but yeah, especially in the black metal world, there is not much. I think probably because by next week maybe I'm the biggest female vocals and black metal fan there. We'll see. We'll see what we'll do. But hey, I'll see you after this and then next time.
Yep.
Stop recording. Thank you.